Hello and welcome back to New Comic Book Day Book Club. My name's Alec, right? And with me, as always, is John, I think.
I'll have to check, but yeah, I think so.
And our guest this week is JP from JP's Budget Collecting. Hello.
Hello.
And this week is, so interestingly, not actually our 69th episode, but our 69th regular book club episode. I'm not counting like year-end reviews and like that's our 69th review show, I think.
Oh.
Or at least the 69th in thumbnail I've made. Either way, for the big 6-9, we're reading Sex Criminals Volume 1.
You really took all the joy out of this event right there.
That's kind of my brand, right? Taking joy out of stuff.
Just suck the joy.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
Let me try again. Hey, this is episode 69. We're talking about sex. All right, that's gonna be a GIF,
right?
Yeah.
Really quick, I'll shout out the chat. We got Chris Barrett says Encino Man Frog, which we did see after we went off air.
That one. That's made
very good,
brother.
Backseat Driver, what's up, man? Comic Man Andy, thanks for coming over from the other show.
Andy.
Who else is here? TJ, the Slab Dragon, says bring on the sex. And Chris Barrett also says I like titties and I cannot lie. Yeah, who doesn't, man?
You know.
So yeah, this is by Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky, two of my favorite current creators. Gore Vidal, hey, welcome. Says I couldn't get beyond the premise. Well, hopefully we can change your mind because I very much enjoy this book. Surprise, surprise.
Have you read all the trades out of stuff?
No, I've not. I've only read. We were just talking before you jumped in. I've only read this volume and a couple other issues, so this is 10 issues.
Okay.
But I was waiting for another hardcover to come out, and then I don't know if a second one ever did, because I didn't want to get like a hardcover and a bunch of trades, because that just bothers me.
Yeah.
But speaking of the premise of this book, it's about these two people who end up finding each other who, since puberty, and the first time they had ejaculation, no, that's not right, orgasm.
There you go.
That they realized that they stopped time when they had a cum, and so they meet each other thinking that they were independently that they thought they were the only people in the world who did this, and when they have sex together, they realize that when they're both stopped time, that they're both in this place, which one of them calls the quiet and the other one calls cum world.
I know which one you like better.
I know God likes better.
So the premise of these first 5 issues kind of is that they discover this, and she, the lead female character, is a librarian at this library that's being foreclosed by the bank, and the guy works for a bank, or the bank.
The bank, yeah.
And hates his job, and they decide, hey, let's freeze time and go rob the bank to pay for the library mortgage. And then, as nothing goes the way that it should in a comic, otherwise it wouldn't be an interesting story, they're intercepted by these people who refer to themselves as the sex police, who can also stop time by orgasming and intercept them and try to arrest them. So that's the kind of the plot of these first 5 issues. Would you say I summed it up?
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Great. Have a good one. Would you read the next issue? Got anything to plug?
Right.
No, but like that's it is at its most basic kind of yeah. But I think really for me it's number one, it's very funny. So it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it like addresses the audience a lot, and it like breaks the fourth wall, not like to a Deadpool degree, but it definitely like has its moments where it's like, kind of like, elbowing you, going, yeah, you get it, type of thing.
I mean, he put out like it's talking to the audience a lot.
Yeah. No, it definitely addresses the audience, but like second person narrative is it's like, but it doesn't like address itself as being a comic very much.
No, this is true. Yeah, it's just her telling her story. It's not
right. But it really is just like a story about them and their like. There's a lot about like their struggles with like loneliness in this thing, and like it's really like kind of an allegory for awkward kids growing up and dealing with sex and sexual awakening and stuff. For me, that's how I take it. But anyway, that's enough of me yammering. I'll let you guys talk.
So JP, this is your first time reading it, right?
Yeah, I read it Sunday, and then I read it, or Monday, and then I read it again a while ago.
Okay.
So
this was my second time reading it, and I will say I went through one of the more awkward trips to the library, checking out the trade for Sex Criminals 1 and 2 with my daughters, obviously.
yeah, you know,
we'll take How to Train Your Dragon and Sex Criminals. A wonderful combination. But no, it was really funny. I really enjoyed both trades. And they didn't have any further, so I never went any further with the story. And then when this came along, I was like, you know what, I enjoyed it. I'll buy the first trade and maybe little by little read the others. So this was a reread for me, and I had forgotten a ton of like little details, but the overall concept sticks with you because it's quite original and different. What I do love about it, though, is, and I know it's probably only in this trade, is the backstory elements, the little stories that take place where she's talking about her awakening and how it connected to this power, and then he's going through his experiences and how so polar they almost are,
right.
Men and women, and how they first experience these things, and then of course when they come together. That idea of how that evolves their understanding of this power. I really enjoyed the sort of backstory element of it, where they're always sort of tracking forward and backward in time.
Yeah. Go ahead. One thing I really liked about this is, as far because there's kind of like 3 timelines at the first few issues. There's the current timeline of her telling you the story. There is the past timeline of her as a young teen, kind of like figuring out that she has this power. And then there's the slightly in the future timeline of them fighting the sex police.
Yeah.
But it doesn't like say like then, now, like, you know, it just like it just one page is one thing and the next page is another. And personally, I was never confused about what was happening or like what was like, I just immediately got like, okay, this is something that is they're leading up to. And clearly, like the past stuff is in the past, but when they jump back and forth between them meeting and them in the fight with the sex police, it just like it never felt confusing or awkward or anything to me.
The only time that it felt confusing or awkward to me was there's a couple times where in the past she jumps around, like in the past, and then she jumps back and forth a little bit in the past, and that threw me for a minute. But when it was like past, present, future, that I all got. Like it took me the second time to read to like get where she kind of jumps around just a little bit in the past of like as she's figuring stuff out. And yeah, that was there was one little segment in there that I found a little bit confusing, but otherwise, no, it was good. So I did not have any trouble following. And something in her past is the best part of the whole book for me. Like some of the like her like trying to figure out what's going on and her conversations with like where she approaches the dirty girls.
Yeah.
Like all of that stuff.
And she's like, you know, when you come and your time stops, and they're all like kind of like look at her.
That is like if I was on your guys' previous show, word bubble of the week, that would be my word bubble of the week, because she's like, hey, sluts, and then she's like, you, and you. And she's like, you know, when this happens, skanks.
Yeah.
And then she's just like running away when they're just staring at her. That's my favorite. That was my favorite. That made me laugh so hard.
Yeah, there's a number of like kind of genuinely funny moments, which for me, like, it's always hard in a comic book to make something funny. Like, you can make something amusing, but to make something like funny, because there's a timing issue. So much of comedy is timing, and like, you can read stuff at a pace that is not intended by the writer or the artist, but yeah, I don't know. A lot of the jokes really land for me in this book.
Yeah, this whole sequence where she approaches him in the hallway and go this way. There you go.
Hey up, bitches.
Yeah, I got something to ask you, and you, sluts. And then it's like, and then she asks him the question there in the fighting, and then she calls them skanks, and they're just staring at her, and she's like, "Oh God." That just made me laugh so hard. And then when she's in the bathroom and Rachel is like teaching her about sex.
Oh yeah, and she does all the different drawings of like the sexual positions.
Yeah,
so funny. Like all the names that she has for them,
and they're just ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's funny for me for stuff like that, because not only is it just funny on the surface, but I always think about, like, okay, she's retelling the story. So how much of this is her memory affecting, like, how much crazier these sexual positions were?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they thought that hard about it when they.
Well, to me, it's clearly like they're thinking about it like, okay, how do we make this? Because to a teenager, when you're learning about these things for the first time,
it all just seems buck wild.
It all just seems like crazy, and they're like, okay, adults are reading this. Let's make this as like put you in that same mindset, and they do a really good job of, even though these are all like crazy, stupid things that don't. Well, I'm sure people do, but most normal people.
Yeah, right. It's like we can't show them, obviously, because they're stick figures, but they're graphic.
They're very graphic.
But there's like
I guess we could show them if you wanted, but
no, it's all right. I don't. Speaking of which, that just reminds me. I did want to mention this. So, speaking of not wanting to get demonetized, I just got my first payment ever from YouTube this week.
Oh, big money.
So it wasn't really big money, but the good news is I need to now go through my super chat history and actually live up to the promise to donate the money that has been super chatted on this show to literacy campaigns. So thank you everyone again who has done that over the years, or I guess year or so since I've been monetized. And yeah, I got a total check of 125 buckaroos, but that is more like than just what's on this show. But so that's why I need to go through and kind of separate them. But still pretty cool that finally made the threshold.
One, it's a nice reminder that people that want to super chat during the nights when we're on Alex's channel for book club, the money is going somewhere really meaningful.
Yeah. Or
not just his wallet, which is nice on other times.
Yeah. Or just take the $5 you were going to super chat and send it directly to a charity. That's just as good. Anyway, so yes. So I don't want to show the pictures because I don't want to get demonetized, because hopefully we'll get to donate some more money to charity soon. But yeah, it's things just like crazy, like not even like Kama Sutra stuff. It's just like comically weird things.
Which I think is part of the fun of it, the like disinformation, which I think is another layer that I like, is how fumbling learning can be in these areas because of how bad information can be for kids to find, especially in the US, I feel like. Yeah. That the hilarity in these early issues is seeing how they both learned truths about sex and how that came about for them because of these challenges in finding actual information and the places where kids go to get information. And so, yeah, the hilarity of like the awkwardness of that is captured really honestly, I would say. Even though it's really funny, it felt very honest at the same time.
And the young man character, when he was a kid, he tells about when he was out in the woods and he found this like porno picture out in the woods, and he took that home and just like went to town on himself to it.
I love this. Like,
and it's funny because like
seconds, it only took 8.
Yeah, right. Yeah. With the internet nowadays, like I don't know what the hell kids do, but I didn't have that opportunity when I was a kid. I had bathroom walls and woods porn.
Yeah, we're getting to honesty sections here that we.
Well, I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean. Like it's just that word of mouth stuff that is what this book is referencing.
Right. Exactly.
Well, yeah, because they talk about like, because it's very much dated. Like these people are probably similar age to, I don't know how old Zdarsky and Fraction are, but as far as kids in the 90s and like before the true, like the internet is what it is now, where it was like they were trying to look up porn and it wasn't their computer. That was, that whole, at least for me, that was the age group I grew up in. So that's, I remember all that.
Yeah. So, I think telling this story 20 years from now wouldn't really work the same way because it'd have to be much different, but
it would be different.
But yeah, back to my original point of how this is kind of like an allegory for sexual awakening, because they kind of discover, and he even talks about how, that when he was a kid, he thought people had sex because they just wanted to have sex. He didn't realize that it felt good.
Yeah.
And so it's this whole story about like realizing your sexual identity, I guess, and they both even talk about how, I think for like different reasons, but that they had some same-sex relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And like his kind of like excuse is that like, oh, well, I was just trying to find other people like me, and so I didn't know if it was a guy thing.
Yeah. But I think that's a really good allegory, just like, because they really they talk about all their relationships and how they still always just felt alone. Like even like, and that a lot of times that's how you feel. Like it's like you hook up with somebody and it's not like, it doesn't have any meaning. It doesn't amount to anything. That as people are going, as teenagers and young adults are going through that, and like they do a really good job, and then suddenly they find someone that they wake up with and it meant something. Like, and yeah, I thought that it was very interesting. The way they handled all of that, and like there's some layers there that I really enjoy.
Yeah. Gore Vidal says, humor is difficult to do. I don't like Deadpool or sophomoric humor in stories or films. It's boring and not funny. Terry Moore and Eric Larson do well in comics. Is this at their level?
I think it's definitely above what I would give Larson credit for, but maybe closer to Terry Moore.
I mean, it's a lot of it is like quote unquote sophomoric because it's like dick humor, but it's not like, it's done in a way that I think is better than the content that it's relying on. Like, it's not just like, haha, dicks are funny, ha ha ha. It's like, it's using this idea of sex as a kind of
way
like
to explore the characters and their
right.
and their understanding and connection to reality.
So for me, I would say it is like, Gore said earlier in the chat that he was kind of turned off by the concept of this, and I can see why, because it seems like silly and sophomoric, but I think it is, the content is better than that.
And there's a book that came out last year and into this year called Money Shot, about astronauts traveling to outer space and running out of funding, so they turn to like porn to make money, and that is far more sophomoric and silly, but also really great. But you can see how they were building off of the style of this, and this takes it more seriously because I think it cares about its characters a little bit more, and cares about their connection to each other more. I was going to highlight a sequence that I love. At one point or another, they go through their, I think it's the second issue, they go through like their entire history with this. And he recounts his whole side of it, because the first issue is really her side of it. And then at some point they're scouting out his bank after, in the quiet, in that time when everything's frozen, and he has this habit of dropping deuces in his boss's ficus plant. And she catches him, and it creates a bit of an awkward issue in their relationship where he has to explain a whole other layer of how he's been abusing this power, about how he's been doing other things besides just sex-related stuff.
Yeah.
What I love about it is it's a very male side of it. His issues with ADHD and anti-establishment or authoritarian kind of attitudes. But then I love her moment. Later on, she recounts how she's abused this power, and it's one of my favorite pages. It's this, yeah. So what happens is she goes through and looks at like, well, what have I done to use this? Like, hey, I stopped time. What can I do with it? And it's like, I'm getting a little extra sleep. It's I'm studying for a test. I'm enjoying dinner in peace and quiet. Might be my favorite one. I'm reading. I have a little extra time to read a book, and then she goes to the zoo and pets animals.
Yeah,
Petting a tiger right there. Amazing. She's trying on clothes. I just love that she realizes like both of them are not like altruistic with this, right?
Yeah.
They are both not harming people, but certainly like making emotional ends meet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, the story is really just like a romantic comedy.
Definitely.
Because it is about their relationship.
Yeah. And
all this other stuff is just things that happen in the story that makes it interesting. But I mean, to me, that's what I take away from it. And there's a lot of funny little moments, like when, if to get to the quiet place, you have to have an orgasm. And so like there's one scene where he finishes before she does, and she's like, wait, I'm not there yet. And then he's just like, oh crap. I don't know if that was in the 6th issue or not, but I don't remember.
They play a little bit with the idea that one person could and one person couldn't. I think at one point she climbs back on top of him and he was like not ready.
Yeah.
And she freezes him.
Right.
And she gets a little time to herself in a way. Because of course we have the sex cops who go in and out. And I love the explanation of how you go in and out of phase,
Right. Like basically when you get horny again, you can, or like when you're ready to have sex, he calls it the refractory period. So basically like when you can get a boner again is when you're kind of done with the frozen time.
Yeah, time starts up again.
My favorite is after when they're testing it, and he's like, and they go and test it into the cum world, the store, and they like move all the crap around and like mess with people and just see what's gonna happen. And then like he's like, well, I'm so tired, I can't possibly. And she's just like, want to do some butt stuff?
Yeah.
4 seconds later. It's like, it's just, I love that they, the different perspectives that they give, like, that they really do handle both of their perspectives on how they think about sex and how they think about, like, very well. Considering that it's written by 2 guys, that I feel like they do a good job of handling her side as well as his, and like,
yeah, and even like there's that moment where she finds a video of the porn star who is what was the picture that he found in the woods, and she's like
awakening figure,
and then she Saint Cocaine, and she says something about how like, oh, I wonder which uncle touched her or something like that, and then like they have this moment where the porn star starts talking to her, being like, first of all, don't judge me for like what I do. Second of all, like don't make assumptions about what happened to me as a child. And I thought that was just interesting, where like that could have been such a like a joke that you just pass by, but they took the time to kind of like do it in an interesting way, where they're kind of like, well, no, not so fast. It's not how everything works. And like, So it's definitely like it's not like abusive towards either sex, or it's not abusive towards the idea of sex or anything like that. And another funny thing is that how, she, like JP was saying, refers to these other girls as sluts and stuff. And like by some people's measure, like she could be classified as that, because she, as an adult, has a lot of sex, and she hooks up with this guy without really knowing him. And like, I think, generally in the 21st century, most people don't think much of that, but some people might. But she still kind of like refers who her roommate ends up being the girl who she asks for the help, and and she still like refers to her like a number of times as being like much more sexually experienced or sexually awakened than her. But well, I guess it's like a matter of opinion or a matter of perspective, right? Because
clearly our characters have had a lot of experience in this area,
right?
Well, and then they also use the fact that like her roommate, like who she talks about being a slut and a skink, and like being very sexually promiscuous, but she's also the one that like said no and got taken advantage of at some point. Like just because she is fairly loose about it doesn't mean she always is that way. And like that's the one time she kind of claims she abused her power a little bit, like
was to get back at the guy who sexually assaulted her roommate.
Or this idea of perception versus reality, the idea that somebody could be considered. I mean, there's no evidence in the entire story that her roommate is in any way promiscuous.
Right.
Like there's no foundational side to it, except that rumor is out there that started in school and has lasted her entire life.
Yeah. Yeah. And the main character, there's also like little scenes like when she's talking to the guy about like having sex outside, and he's like, "Oh, I've never done that." And she's like, "Oh, it can be really nice if the day is nice, but if it's not, like the bugs can be a bitch," which leads you to believe that she's done it more than once. Now, not there's anything like wrong with that. I'm not judging anyone who's having sex outside as long as you're not doing it around children. But it like her perspective of like what promiscuous is and what like a slut is. I'm not saying that she is or isn't. I'm just saying that it's an interesting dynamic of like her continually accusing her roommate of being like the slutty girl.
And whereas all the evidence is that she's
we basically watched her recount her entire sexual history and all the partners that she's had in all the different ways.
But I think like if you did that with anybody, you'd be like, oh, geez. I wouldn't quite put it as like on that level of thoughtfulness, gore, as Optic Nerve, but it's much smarter than like the premise gives it credit for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you want to talk a little bit more in depth about the plot and like how
we haven't gotten into what I think is obviously going to be the plot long term, which is these police officers who I find quite hilarious, despite being very violent and potentially dangerous. The costumes they wear, the police station that they use, like all these. The visual aesthetic for the sex police characters and even the art style is dramatically different for the way their faces are drawn. They stand out like from a crowd.
Yeah.
I would love to hear, obviously you are an art major, but like for me visually, I was very entertained on many levels, both like from a humor standpoint, watching her with her like skirt that splits right at her vagina. It's like laid right open. The guys with the giant crotch bulges that like run around with dildo weapons and stuff. It's the humor is over the top, but also like the look of these characters is very grotesque. Like they're not attractive in any way.
No.
And they're very like intense and violent almost.
Yeah. And she, like, when they're confronted by them, she immediately accuses them, saying like, what kind of cops are you? Are you even real cops? And she kind of like pickpockets one of the dudes, and she's like, this guy's a bus driver. He's not a cop.
Yeah.
So there's that question of like, under whose authority do they work, and
legitimacy of them that they have in any way, shape, or form, which it doesn't appear to me like they have any other than they decided on their own that they're going to police like people. And
to be fair, they are trying to stop them from robbing a bank. So they are
like, I'm not saying they don't have like the moral high ground in terms of trying to stop them from robbing a bank. I'm just saying, like, based on whose authority other than their own, like they've decided on their own they're going to police these people. And like,
well, I think they're, a big part of it is kind of the suggestion that they're doing it for their own benefit so that they don't get found out as being people who have this power as well. So it's more about like, they don't care so much about people breaking the laws. They care so much about people abusing this power and getting like this community of time stoppers kind of like found out about.
I agree. And most of the discussions centered around the police are in hypothetical. I want to say there's only a couple that feel authentic, in much the same way that the young characters going through sexual exploration have to deal with a lot of disinformation. There's almost a lot of theoretical elements involved with these characters as well as what is real or not. And there's a sequence in the last issue where you see the like head cop woman at home with her like kids and her husband, and she's basically like really living a very normal existence,
like making dinner for them, and
none of the future
wearing mom jeans,
clothes, or like dildo weapons or anything. Stuff. She's like, making dinner, arguing with her kids. Her husband's just sitting at the table, drinking away, and it's like, it's so opposite of the visual she presents as this threat to our heroes.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of it is like how much of what you get on, like you said, how much of what you get on these couches, these sex police, is even true, because a lot of it seems to be Susie's perception of what she thinks they might be, because she talks about, somehow they were already on to us, and she's like, I imagine she has a family. I imagine she's their Bruce Willis. I mean, she talks about like,
and that's what I wanted to bring up is that page where if you, at the top of that page, they show the police station in the main character's mind. And there's no evidence that what she's thinking is an actuality, right?
Right.
It's her hypothesis that could totally be real. But for me, a lot of the assumptions they make have no basis. In fact, we only know the woman, the woman cop character works at the police station answering phones, that she shows up at the crime scene to try to catch them. She shows up at several other places where they go to kind of watch them, and that she has a family and she's at home with them one night.
And that she does Kegels.
And that she, apparently. Works really
hard. A lot.
And can sort of like stimulate the reality when she wants to.
Yeah, right.
Like independently without any assistance. Which is, again, hilarious. And then watching our characters freeze them out of time.
Yeah. So when they get caught, and so they're attacked by these guys with dildos, and then when they handcuff them, they use like sexy cuffs.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's very funny. But it's then revealed that she's double jointed and knows how to get out of these manacles. So
again,
she gets out and
she has experience with all of this kind of
stuff. And so she then like surprises them and takes back their gun, which they took from them, which turns out to be a vibrator. And she turns them all on with it.
And they all
snap out of this quiet Cumworld place, and that's how they get away.
So here's the here's one of the there was one thing about that whole sequence at the end. It was like that struck me as especially weird is like, so they're going in to catch them. They don't want it to be revealed that they have this power. This is going on, but the time cop calls the real cops to report a bank robbery, or the sex cop.
Yeah.
Like that didn't make any sense to me. That like she was reporting the bank robbery to bring potentially real police in, which would lead to them getting caught, which is the whole thing. She doesn't. She wants this. She wants to catch them. She doesn't want them to be caught by actual police and found out.
Well, is that the case, or does she not want them to get caught doing it the way that they're trying to do it?
Maybe. I don't know. It was just very strange.
Yeah.
I wanted to highlight their outfits for the chat who can't quite see the time police. Her costume has like almost no skin showing, but like upper thigh, crotch is like
crotch shot. Yeah.
Amazingly highlighted. And then they got the gimp here with the like ball sack bulge going. The costumes are hilarious for me. I like the whole thing. Just absolutely worth the price of admission for me.
Tacoma, welcome. And he says somewhere around issue 20, the series got totally boring and pointless. Then they came back and totally changed the direction, and it's okay. So yeah, I'm interested in finishing it, but I can see how it's like one of those series where they have this like dynamite concept for the first few issues and then like kind of lose direction.
Yeah.
Which is what he's saying. Like he's angry because some of the stuff we're talking about just doesn't matter in the end of the story.
Yeah. And I will say that like this one is like just in my thoughts in general on this is I really enjoyed this. I don't know how long I would enjoy, like how interested I am in really reading the whole thing. Like if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I found this interesting. I feel like their relationship, and maybe I like where it's the romantic comedy and stuff, but a lot of the relationship is almost solely founded on the fact that they can both do this. Like, and they don't really know that much about each other because she's just right at the end, like all the other stuff with him because she catches him dropping a douche in his boss's spotted plant. Like, there's so much they don't have a clue about each other, which is not that different than in real life when you get into a relationship, but like, they're connected by this one thing, and I'm just not sure how long that can last as interesting with where this is going. But and it sounds like Tacoma says it kind of goes a little up and down.
A little wonky, but
yeah.
Yeah, it's they certainly have like that initial attraction where they kind of share this bond, which is why they hook up in the first place. But yeah, then it quickly turns into like, oh my God, you can do this too, and that turns into like, which understandably, like from their perspective, why that would kind of take over. But yeah, then they just start kind of like inching their way back into like normal relationship conversations towards the end of this first trade.
Yeah.
So then it sounds like Alec is going to read the rest of the storyline. JP is not fully convinced. I've read the second trade, and at some point I'd like to read the rest. So it seems like we got everybody on the spectrum a little bit.
Well, and I will also say part of the reason I'm not necessarily like I can see myself coming back to this. I just it's not something I'm like, oh, I gotta go get volume 2 right now. Like, which I think is probably fairly similar to where you were at because you said you'd read volume 1 and 2 at some point, and then you hadn't read it.
Well, same thing for me. Like, I'm pretty sure this hardcover is volume 1 and 2. Basically, it's the first 10 issues.
Yeah,
and I remember the first time I read it, I blew through it like pretty quickly because I've enjoyed it and it's an easy read. But then I was like, clearly wanted more, but never really hunted it down. I don't know, but maybe it's because I'm lazy.
Yeah,
I will say also, as fun as the paneling and the pacing is, and the character design is, I'm not a huge fan of the art style. The way the faces are drawn, sometimes I feel like it's very simplistic and it's not very interesting. I love the covers. I think have a real fun flair and design to them. But the issues themselves, the interior art is nothing that I just absolutely adore.
No, it services the story well, but it's never like I was never like blown away with it. I think Zdarsky has proven himself to be kind of a better writer than an artist, but no offense to Chip. I mean, I think the art is solid. It just like doesn't like there's never that like wow moment for me.
No,
it
serves the pacing and it serves the writing well, but it's just not anything where you're like, wow, look at that panel, look at that splash page.
Which like not all art needs to do that. Like I think a lot of times artists kind of sacrifice good storytelling for the sake of doing those like wow pages, but
right.
Nobody made a splash page joke with this book.
Well, there's not a splash page in the whole thing, is there really?
No. Every page is a splash page.
Every page is a splash page.
It's just like, yeah.
So yeah, much like a lot of these episodes of this show we've been doing recently, there's strangely it feels like less to talk about when we like a book.
Well, we've gone 41 minutes. I think we did pretty well.
Yeah, but some of the ones we dunked on like an hour, we're like, oh, we can still dunk on this some more.
Let me tell you what else is wrong with this piece of crap.
Yeah, and that's a single issue. We read 5 issues of this.
I think it's also the difference between a trade and a single issue. I think you read a single issue and you start really dissecting
it, yeah, for sure.
Versus a trade where you're looking at so much more material, especially like when we did last time we had JP on and talking about 4, and that's a ton of reading to do there. Versus 5 issues,
I will say I am with John. Like the art for me was fine. It wasn't anything spectacular. It was, it worked. I do like that he did, as you pointed out, do a very distinct difference in the sex police characters than every other character in the story. Not just like the main characters. No other characters look or drawn that way.
Right.
I thought that was an interesting contrast. But other than that, like I thought the art was just okay. We got to have art because it's a comic book. So it's kind of like it's solid, but not. There's nothing in it that makes me go, oh yeah, I really love this art. And again, some of this could be like I will fully admit, like I'm just like a little bit in on this, but like I've been reading a bunch of like stories like this for the first time, and I've literally read Saga, East of West, Monstrous, and Fables, and this. And art-wise, this just doesn't stack up with the other stuff.
That's not fair, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's just like
those are some powerhouse titles for art, though.
Like in all in the last like 3 weeks, I've been reading all this stuff, and it's like, oh well, this is just kind of like.
Yeah, next to Monstrous, it's like, yeah, I get it.
But you should read a little bit of this, and then it'll even out the
whole. Nothing will look good then. Everything will look crappy after every day.
Man Frog is unmatched.
That's right.
It is the pinnacle. We don't have anything picked for next week. We're trying to look at what comes out next week. It sounds like Jason's saying that, JP, this one down here is saying there's no real Marvel drops and that it might be a smaller week next week.
Well, I think there's stuff. I'm not sure what all it is.
Okay. I looked at the list. It's pretty slim pickings.
Well, let's just plan on Southern Bastards 1 and 2. We'll do a double dose. There'll be a ton to talk about there. But if something comes up, we will let you know through Instagram that we've changed our minds. But that means he's got a ton of reading and a D&D thing to prepare.
Yep. So
you'll be busy.
So we may end up changing our mind just to give the poor guy a break.
or D&D is just going to be lackluster this week.
Or you just do you just roll the previous show into this show and you just do Man.
Right, we could do a Man Frog just to tide us over.
Yeah.
We know plenty of people who have it now.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, just bring that. Yeah, like JP saying, just bring the whole panel over. Throw Adam in here, and we'll be set.
So thanks for hanging out, everyone. Really appreciate your time this evening to hear us talk about sex criminals.
JP's got some big stuff coming up this week.
Yeah, JP, what do you got?
Tomorrow I've been doing the indie show, which is very similar to this, but I have never read like any of these. So we're doing Fables Volume 1 tomorrow with John, Life with Two YouTubers, and the Unruly Simeon are joining me. So we will be breaking down Fables tomorrow night. Friday night, Collecting Smart is back after like a 5-month hiatus. Matt and I are probably going to do that again, and John is joining us for that. So John is like super busy on my channel. And Perry and Not Near Mint, Rob Worst are all going to join us, and we're going to discuss our collecting habits after the hiatus. Are we going to go back to new books? Is it going to like be reduced? How are we thinking about new books? I know I, for one, it's helped push me further down a road that I was already going down, which is toward reading and just collecting specific things that I really want and getting everything else through something like this. Spoiler.
I was thinking that too. It really is like broken my desire for like cover buys and spec books and stuff. Like I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about that on Friday night. Saturday should have the look back. Otherwise TJ will like hunt me down and beat me. And so I'll have that out. And then, Sunday we'll be back on this channel and we'll be playing some D&D. So you guys are getting me every day for the next 4 or 5 days. So
yeah, some D&D. If you guys haven't checked out the last couple weeks of D&D, you can watch them on my channel if you'd like.
last Sunday was really good. Alec did some storytelling.
Yeah, I really.
Work, man.
Yeah, now I really got to live up to that every week now, which is.
No, you don't.
I've made a huge mistake.
So too high of expectations. TJ.
John, what do you got going on?
I'm not doing anything these next few days. I'm just kidding. I'm on he already mentioned all the shows I'm doing with JP. If you find JP online, I'm going to be there as well. That's the idea. Yeah. Tomorrow, Friday, and Sunday, I'm hanging out with JP.
There you go.
Nice. And so come by Sunday for D&D. Check out JP's shows the next couple of nights. Check out John's Saturday morning comics with his girls. And come back next week on John's channel for a yet to be named possibly Southern Bastards chat.
I'm rooting for Mayfrog.
Or Mayfrog.
Or Southern Bastards.
Vote in the comments below and smash that like button. I'm kidding. I don't care about that. But have a great night, everyone, and never turn your back on the ocean.